Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Little. I'm here today with the 125th episode of Weekly Poker Hand. Before we get started, I want to tell you about the new application I have recently released. It is called the Float the Turn Push Fold app. You can actually search for it on the iTunes and Android app stores, or you can download it completely for free at jonathanlittlepoker.com/app, just app. So what this app does is it allows you to very easily see which hands you should be going all in or folding based on your stack size. So what you do is you enter your stack size, then you enter your position, and there you are. It tells you if you should push or fold when everyone folds to you. And now, this is where most poker applications fail. They just, that's it. What our app does is you can actually push the next button. So if you fold, and say you're on the button, well, now you're on the cutoff. Say you were under the gun, you can't push from the big blind because if people fold you in the big blind, you get a walk. It puts you in the small blind and it takes away a big blind from your stack. So it keeps track of your stack size, and it also accounts for your position. Also, you can steal, which will say that you steal the blinds, you steal the antes, and that will increase your stack size. So anyway, check out the Float the Turn Push Fold app. Again, you can test it out and use it at jonathanlittlepoker.com/app, or you can search for Float the Turn Push Fold in the Google or the iTunes App Store. So check it out. It's completely free. Let me know what you think, because we've been working hard on it, and we are working hard to continue releasing new features like a quiz feature that should be out very soon. So here we have an interesting hand from a $1,000 buy-in event. We have a tilty guy who only has 2,500 chips, and he raises from second position, and it folds around to me in the cutoff with pocket kings. And normally with pocket kings and a 20,000 chip stack at 75-150, I'm going to be re-raising this guy every time. But here my goal is not really to get it in versus the tilty guy, because if I get it all in for 2,500 chips, it's not like it's a huge success. Of course, it's getting money and good, and we're happy about that. But I think the better play is to call and give someone else yet to act the opportunity to make some sort of an error, either by calling preflop or re-raising preflop, whatever. We really want to let our opponents stick around. So this is an abnormal situation where our opponent's stack size is very relevant. So now, a bit to my surprise, a player from the small blind makes it 1,500, so not even that big of a re-raise. I have this player labeled as a tight aggressive kid, so there's some chance that I think he's actually very tight. But with these pocket kings, I'm obviously happy to get a lot of money in the pot. However, notice if I re-raise here to say 4,000 and my opponent sticks around, well, now I'm not really loving it because my opponent likely has aces, kings, queens, or ace-king. And, we're in good shape against the range, but for all I know, maybe my opponent folds out hands like ace-king and queens to a re-raise because my play looks incredibly strong. So for that reason, I think I like calling in the spot. Obviously, we're going to get out flops sometimes, but I do think there is plenty of merit in calling and seeing what develops, especially given we're in position. We can just easily play a huge pot in this way, and we make it impossible to go broke when we're against pocket aces. This is a good example of a spot where in a cash game, perhaps you just blast your stack in preflop happily, but in tournaments, you should often play a little bit more cautiously because going broke here is kind of a disaster when you lose a 200 big blind pot or I guess it's 150 big blind pot early in a tournament. We really don't want to be playing gigantic pots without a very clear idea of where we stand, especially in a soft $1,000 buy-in event. So anyway, flop comes Jack, Jack, 8, 2 clubs. We have no club. Our opponent bets 1,300 into the 3,500 pot. I'm definitely going to call. I don't see any merit in raising. If we raise, our opponent's going to play very well, probably continuing mostly with a jack or pocket aces or pocket queens. So we really want to keep our opponent in with all of his potential bluffs. Turns to 3 of diamonds, a complete blank. Our opponent bets 3,000, which is great. Again, we're just going to call. And notice here, if our opponent bets something like 7,000 on the river, I'm still going to call. And we'll be left with 10,000 chips if we lose the pot. So by playing the hand in this manner, we cap our upside, of course. We make it very difficult to get it all in or something like that against pocket queens or ace king. But at the same time, we really minimize our risk. We make it to where even if I lose the pot, I'm going to have 10,000 chips left at 75-150, which is certainly a workable stack. So I'm going to call. River is another 3. So Jack, Jack, 8, 3, 3. The obvious flush draw missed on the river. So now I have to ask, is there any value in betting? And I actually think there is, because most players would bet pocket aces on the river. And if he didn't bet pocket aces on the river, we're obviously going to get called every time he has pocket aces. However, I think whenever he has a hand like pocket queens or pocket tens or pocket nines, he's probably going to call a river bet most of the time, given the obvious draws missed. Jack, Jack 8, 2 clubs, remember, and no clubs came. So I think this is a spot where we definitely have to value bet. This is a skill that a lot of amateur players simply do not have. They just check behind and expect to win because they really don't want to bet and get called by aces and then lose the pot, right? That's a disaster in their minds. Whereas professional players realize that whenever you are value betting, your value bet only needs to get called by a worse hand 50% of the time or more to justify breaking even, which means you can lose 49% of the time, and it's okay. Of course, again, in tournaments, the same logic applies as pre-flop. You don't want to be playing huge pots without a strong hand or very clear idea of where you stand. And again, I'm not saying you should not play all in pre-flop with pocket kings, but I think this play is probably a little bit better just because it keeps our opponent in with all of his junky hands, if he happens to have any of those. Junky hands like pocket nines and pocket sevens and ace 10 and stuff like that. So anyway, I definitely think there is merit in value betting because he's going to call us with aces, queens, tens, nines, and obviously there are way more hands we beat there than hands we lose to. So I'm going to bet probably about 5,000. That is exactly what I bet, 5,000 to 12,000. Our opponent calls and we win. So we get a nice bit of value on the river. And most likely I was against a hand like queens or tens, and it may appear like we lost value. But notice if I 4-bet this pre-flop, my opponent's going to call, and then he's probably going to call the flop bet and then get out of the way on the turn of the river. So we would have played roughly the same size pot, but I also run the risk of letting him off the hook pre-flop with all of his garbage. And again, garbage doesn't mean total garbage. Garbage means stuff like ace 10 and pocket sevens and stuff like that. So I like this play. I think it's good. It's just an example of how to be a little bit cautious post-flop, but then once it becomes clear you have the best hand, you can go for value. So that's going to be it for this episode. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you would have gone for the river value bet. And also, again, check out the new Float the Turn Push Fold app, and let me know what you think. I'm open to all suggestions to make the app better. I want to make it the most useful poker tool available. So thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you next time.